Hello, everybody. Happy marvelous Monday. How are you? I'm excited that you are joining me today. I'm Carissa Span, the landlord and tenant coach, and today I'm sharing some information that I believe will be helpful for a lot of landlords. All right. So if you are a landlord or you know someone who is, this Facebook Live, this YouTube Live, this LinkedIn Live is for you. If you know someone that should be watching, go ahead and tag them. Tell them to tune into the discussion right now. All right. So, the information I'm sharing today, I promise that my only goal is to make sure that it's understandable and it's clear for landlords as well as tenants to understand. So, if you're a tenant, if you know someone who is a tenant, then maybe this information may be helpful for you as well. So, we are talking about today the top four reasons, the top four dangers landlords should be aware of when repairs are not made. So I'm going to share information for landlords. I'm going to share information for tenants because at the end of the day, as a seasoned housing professional, I've been in property management for well over 28 years. As a seasoned professional, I can tell you that one of the biggest disconnects is when either a landlord and or a tenant is not educated about what their role or responsibility is when it comes to the rental property. If you have questions, please drop all of your questions, your comments in the comment section. I will address them. I just want to say thank you to all of you who are watching on Facebook, to those of you who are watching on LinkedIn. If you have not found my YouTube page, please, when you get a moment, go over to the YouTube page and smash that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know when I am live and online. And again, I'm Carissa Span. I am a property management professional. I'm a property management educator. I am the landlord and tenant coach. So if you have questions today, don't be a stranger. If you can hear me okay, drop me some love in the comment section. Say, hey, girl, hey, let me know that you're here. As a matter of fact, let me know where you are tuned in from. I love to acknowledge my viewers today. So I am talking about the top four dangers that landlords should be aware of when repairs are not made rather in the rental property. It doesn't matter if it's a townhouse, if it's an apartment, if it's a single family house, it could be a trailer home. It doesn't matter. When it comes to rental property, by law, landlords are required to make sure that the property is decent, safe, and sanitary. So I'm just going to cover four of the top dangers that landlords should be aware of. And I also have some tips for tennis as well, because listen, I've been in the game long enough. I have skin in the game, and I recognize that sometimes tenants will likely do things that will cause repairs to not be completed, or maybe the problem in terms of the repairs or the renovations that must be made. All right, so I'm going to share some information today. I hope that you find it helpful, valuable. Give me some love, give me some feedback. I promise I will provide you with my email address so that if you have any questions, if I'm offline, you can reach me. Hello, Alfred. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy marvelous Monday. All right, so I'm going to share some information today. All right, I promise I'm not going to hold you long. This is what I do each and every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I had a little hiccup today because of the time change, so it kind of knocked everything off, but I'm glad that you're here. So you're at the right place at the right time. Tell another landlord, tell a tenant to tune in right now. As a matter of fact, each and every Monday. Hello, Cecilia. Thank you so much, beautiful, for tuning in. Thank you for chiming in from my YouTube channel. I have Facebook here, I have YouTube here, I have LinkedIn here. We're all here together because we're one big happy family, right? All right, so let me get into it. I don't want to hold you long. If you had an opportunity to check out the description, today I'm just talking about the four top dangers that landlords should be aware of when repairs are not completed in the home. So I've already shared how the rental property should be decent, it should be safe, and it should always be sanitary. But here's the thing, I recognize that sometimes things don't go as planned, right? But when it doesn't happen, there's still a way that landlords and housing providers should manage their rental business as well as the property. So I'm going to go over some tips, but I want to share this information because it's going to be so helpful. Here's the first thing. These are pretty much standard requirements. Landlords, by law, are supposed to maintain common areas, such as the hallways and their stairways. So, for instance, if it's an apartment building, these are just some things that landlords, these are just basic standards that landlords are required to make sure is intact and working properly. The floors, the walls, the stairs, as well as the roof, they should be, listen, there should be no holes, no tripping hazards in the floor, the walls, the stairs must be intact. I've managed some rental property where the stair tread was coming up. That is a violation. Landlords are to maintain property where the roof does not leak. Okay. That's not the tenant's responsibility. Landlords are also required to make sure that plumbing, electrical, and ventilation, heating and air conditioning is working, that tenants have cold and hot water. Landlords are also required to make sure that the rental property does not have environmental hazards such as lead dust, such as mold, asbestos. Property cannot have roaches, mice, rats, and vermin such as wild animals lingering around. That's a violation. These are just some of the major violations. I want to cover some minor violations, some minor repairs, if you will, because sometimes I recognize that all owners, um, probably landlords and owners who self manage, who may not have had a lot of experience or education to understand the difference between a minor and a major renovation or repair. So I'm going to share some minor repairs because sometimes even tenants don't understand the difference. Okay. I do want to acknowledge you as you're coming in. Please let me know that you're here. Show me some love in the comment section. Hello, Miss Elizabeth. Happy, marvelous Monday to you, beautiful. So I'm sharing some information today. I think it's going to help a lot of you. I believe it's going to help a lot of you today. So let me share some major versus minor renovations because I want tenants, especially tenants, to understand the difference. Because sometimes, as a housing professional, I'll get a call. Now, listen, in my tenure, in my professional career of being a property management professional, I have managed thousands of property. I still get calls from tenants. They may say, well, Carissa, um, my bathroom, my bathtub is stopped up. Well, just depending on how many bathrooms are in the property, that would determine if that's an emergency or if that's a repair that I can take care of a little bit later. So I'm going to share some information because I believe that this is going to help a lot of you today. All right, here's the thing: major violations versus minor repairs. So, for instance, if the entry door doesn't lock, that is a major violation. Doors must be operable if they're, and it also must securely lock. So, if the entry door won't lock, that's a major violation. Now, if, for instance, the screen door is broken or has a broken latch, that's not major, that's something minor. Here's another major violation. If there is no heat in the winter, the family has no way of keeping them and their family warm in the wintertime. That is a major violation. In the listen, in the summertime, tenants not having heat, that's not major. That's a minor repair that can be taken care of. But here's another thing: I get a lot of complaints often about black mold or mildew in rental properties, especially where there are families, there are children. That is a major violation. But now let's just say that in the rental property, there are some brown water stains in the ceiling. Maybe there was a roof leak, or maybe there was some sort of water intrusion at some point of time. As long as it's not mold, if it's not mildew, that's not classified as a major renovation. That's minor repairs. Now, I'm not saying that the repairs are not needed, they should be made. However, there's a difference between the two. All right. So I want especially tenants to understand that a major violation is very different from something that's minor that may be irritating or just something that's annoying. All right. So I'm going to give you the four top um, dangerous things that landlords need to know. Hello, Mr. James. Happy Marvelous Monday. Hello, Juan Johnson. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you being here today. So here's my first question of the day. If you have questions, if you have comments, go ahead and drop it in the comment box. Question: can you make a tenant pay for plumbing repairs? I have a tenant that in the past 2 months has clogged the toilet 3 times. That's a great question. Thank you for that question. Here's my response to you. What's in writing? What is in your lease? If it's in your lease that the tenant is responsible for plumbing repairs, then absolutely. Now, if it is not in writing, you cannot enforce something that does not exist. All right, let me repeat that. If it's not in writing, you can't enforce it. So hopefully you have it in writing. Hopefully it's in the lease and the tenant has signed. Now let's just go ahead and hypothetically say that you have all your stuff in order. It's in your lease. You have it in writing. The tenant has signed it saying, I'm going to be responsible for the plumbing repairs. Okay, so here's what you do. You contact this tenant, whether it's by phone, by email, by text, but you definitely want to follow up in writing to let the tenant know that the repairs that have been completed is their responsibility. I would highlight any paragraph in your lease that speaks specifically to the language, whereas the tenant is responsible. And then I would also attach a picture, I'm sorry, in addition to pictures, also attach copies of the invoice, of the bill, of however much it costs. Now, one of the things that I like to do, because I have a diverse portfolio. So I have some tenants who are market tenants. I have other tenants who are in some sort of type of affordable housing program, right? And so what I do is I make it convenient for tenants. So I'll tell them, listen, contact me within 30 days to either A, make payment in full, or B, make payment arrangements. But they have to contact me within 30 days. If they do not contact me, if they do not make payment, that is a violation of the lease. And those of you, you've been following me for a while, you know that my lease package is at least 61 pages long. No exaggeration. I know some of you are like, Carissa, 61 pages. Absolutely. I'm very detailed. I'm very thorough in what I do. I believe in protecting the asset, right? And so if it's not in writing, I can't enforce it. So, true story, my lease packages are at least 61 pages long. It covers who's responsible for repairs. It covers what happens if a tenant clogged the toilet. It even lets the tenants know on average how much it's going to cost them in advance before they put a hole in the wall, before the garbage disposal gets backed up, before a window is broken, before a door comes off the hinge. When they sign a lease with me, they know in advance how much it's going to cost. They know in advance that if a door has to be replaced, such as a bedroom door or a closet door, it's going to cost them $90. All of that is in writing and it's spelled out, it's very clear. So hopefully that helps. Hello, Miss Davis. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, so slogan 5445 from the YouTube channel. You said you too. Okay, so hopefully you have it in writing and hopefully you've sent this tenant a notice letting them know that they are responsible for the repair. Now, some tenants will cooperate and they'll make the payment, they'll make payment arrangement. And then you may have some tenants that will say, well, you know what? I don't have it, or maybe I do have it, but I'm just not paying it. In that case, I would strongly recommend that you enforce your lease, which means you should take that tenant to court. I know that sometimes you don't want to pay the court fees, you don't want to pay an attorney to take a tenant to court over small things, but here is why it's important to do that, because you are sending a clear message that you are about your business. And so sometimes if you allow situations to happen, they continue to happen, and you don't do anything, you're sending a message to the tenant to let them know that, well, it's okay. The landlord doesn't really care, so it doesn't matter. And sometimes they may have the mindset, well, you know what? It's not my rental property. I don't own the place, so I don't care at all. You will have that. And I promise you that if you're new in property management, or maybe you have never had that, two thumbs up to you, but there are some others who don't have that same story. All right. So this is why I'm sharing information today. Let me go back to my tips that I want to bring up on the screen. And if you have questions, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. And again, if you have not gone to my YouTube channel, please make sure that you do that. Here's the thing. I said that landlords are required by law to make sure that the rental property is decent, safe, and sanitary, right? Well, tenants are expected to adhere to take care of the property in accordance with the rental lease agreement. And so I want you to notice that it has to be in writing because what's in writing will stick. The lease is a legally binding document. All right. So again, landlords, please make sure that the rental property is decent. Make sure it's safe. There cannot be safety hazards or health hazards, no tripping hazards. And how do you know the condition of your rental property? Hopefully, you or your agent should be conducting inspections. I believe that if you put it in writing, you let the tenant know the frequency of your housing inspections, the better. And so for me, typically, just depending on the community that I'm managing, because I'm, like I said, I have a diverse range of rental property in my portfolio that I'm managing and that I oversee. So for some properties, I may, or my team may have to inspect it every month, just depending on the condition, depending on the type of tenants. There are other properties where we may inspect quarterly. I wouldn't go, I wouldn't go any further than 6 months. So you definitely don't want to go past 6 months to understand the condition of the property. When you go in, you're assessing the repairs that are needed, but you're also assessing any type of housekeeping issues that you need to address. Here's why a once a year inspection will not work for many people. There are some exceptions to the rule. So don't just rely on an inspection taking place once a year in a rental property. Because let's say, for instance, there is a water leak somewhere, right? Water travels, and water will find the least resistant route. So water will not stay in the same place. Let's say you have a duplex or a house, and the upstairs sink is leaking, or the toilet is leaking, or maybe the shower is leaking. At some point, that water is going to go downstairs, and over a period of time is going to create more issues, more damage than you may be expected, to take care of and to see. And so this is why you don't want to wait on, you don't want to wait just once a year to do the inspection. I recommend for everybody, especially for all of my clients, they'll tell you that I commonly say conduct rental property inspections at least once every 3 months. You want to do preventative maintenance. You want to prepare to take care of the issues before they become major. All right. So here's the big question. What can landlords do to avoid expensive repairs? All right. So here's the first thing. So before I answer that, I want to bring up the top 4 dangers of what happens when repairs are not completed. All right. Here is what tenants can do. Tenants can withhold their rent if landlords are not making repairs. And I know that some landlords, listen, I won't say the landlord's name, but in the DC metropolitan area, a few years ago, there was this big article in the paper, and I felt really bad for this landlord because it was someone that I knew. I didn't know them personally, but they asked me to come in and to try to help them, but it was just too far gone. They did not make repairs in so many years that the property was just in a really bad shape. And when it was that bad, obviously I couldn't put my name on it, right? If it's that bad where repairs are not made, mold was in almost every apartment, heat wasn't working, rats were everywhere. It was really bad. So there was no way that I could put my name or anything like that. And so anyway, because the landlord did not make repairs, the landlord did not hire a property management company. They tried to self-manage the property, and maybe it worked, the first 5, 10, or 15 years, but over time, something happened. and they stopped making repairs. So the tenants, they were able to withhold their rent. Now, here's the thing, because that property had gotten so bad, the rent that was being withheld, it was placed in escrow. Now, that owner still had a mortgage to pay on the property. That owner still had utilities to pay. The water bill still had to be paid. And they were not able to access that money. Legally, it was in the court's registry. So tenants are allowed to withhold the rent according to laws in that particular jurisdiction. Here's the second thing. This is the second danger of what happens when repairs are not completed. Tenants can repair and deduct. So let's say, for instance, the situation, the story that I told you about, this landlord in the DC metropolitan area. The tenants, they started making repairs because they were concerned. They were not just sitting around waiting for this owner to finally get to them. So they began to make repairs or had other professionals to make the repair, and they were legally able to deduct from the rent. Here's why you don't, as a landlord, you don't want to allow tenants to be in that seat of control. Because let's just say, I'm going to use you, Mr. Nelson, because I know that you are a phenomenal landlord, right? You and your wife, the Nelson team. So, Mr. Nelson, I'm renting your property and something happened and you guys are not able to make repairs. It's been 6 months. I've paid my rent on time. I've been a great tenant. Then all of a sudden, I just stopped hearing from you. So, what I decide to do is I'm going to get my uncle, I'm going to get Joe Schmo, who is a plumber by professional, by trade. I don't know. All I know is that he said that he could fix the toilet, right? Toilet has been leaking. It's a little wobbly when I sit on it. It's not stable. So I'm just go ahead and get my uncle to come in and to make the repair. So my uncle or my play uncle, Joe Schmo, we pretty cool. So I tell him, I say, listen, put an extra $1,000, put an extra $1,500 on the bill, right? You see where I'm going with this? If you allow tenants to be in the seat of control of being responsible for making repairs and deducting it from the rent, the bill can be a little costly. Sometimes, let's say the bill should have been $300, but by me going to Joe Schmo, who has my back, he marks the bill up to $2,300 and I deduct it from the rent. And so this is a danger. This is what I want landlords to understand, that when you don't make the repair, this is something that could potentially happen legally. All right. Here's a third danger. And I'm only sharing the top four today. All right. If you have questions or comments, please drop it in the comment section. If you're not making repairs as a landlord, this can abruptly break the lease and move out. How helpful is that if you have a tenant that just abruptly leaves the rental property? My philosophy is this: if you treat it like a business, it will pay you like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, well, guess what? It's going to pay you like a hobby. The rental property should be bringing in money every month like an ATM. So the worst mistake that an owner can do is have a rental property that should be paying them each month like clockwork. And yet, because a tenant moves out, now they have no money coming in. Please don't make that mistake. That's why it's so important for you as owners and property managers to make repairs. Here is the fourth danger. All right. Tenants can sue their landlord for not making repairs. Okay. It happens all the time. So remember, I told you about that apartment complex in the DC metropolitan area. The tenants, they put their money in escrow and they were able to sue their landlord. Can you imagine having a rental property that should be paying you each month, but because you don't do what you're supposed to do, your tenant turns around and sue you? It happens all the time. And so this is why I share information. I share information because my goal, I have this crazy idea that I can try to help somebody prevent from going down this rabbit hole that others have made the mistake in going into. All right. So those are the top four dangers that I want landlords to understand and to know about. All right. Alfred, you said, or you can write a review on that tenant for all to see. Now that's good. But now here's the thing, Mr. Washington, because you can write a review, but it just depends because not all owners are going to be on whatever platform you're writing the review. So that might be helpful, but then again, it may not be. Here's why I say it may not be. Because let's take, for instance, I'm coming to you, Mr. Nelson. I see your comment. So going back to you, Mr. Washington, let's just say that you have a tenant. You had one of what I sometimes I talk about tenants from hell, right? So you have a tenant from hell. You write a review, but Mr. Nelson, he's not on a platform that you're posting your review. As a matter of fact, Mr. Nelson has no information on how to contact you, right? And so now Mr. Nelson and the Nelson team takes on your tenant from hell. So you still want to go above and beyond because sometimes everybody may not see the review. But if you have the ability to write reviews, please do, because here's the thing. Tenants will do the same thing. If they have a bad experience with you as an owner or a landlord, they're going to write a bad review. All right, so Mr. Nelson, you said absolutely. And if they aren't licensed, bonded, things could get even worse. Absolutely. So this goes back to me speaking to the fact that sometimes tenants, when they repair and deduct, number one, the cost could be through the roof. And what can you do if it's documented? Anybody can actually create an invoice, right? So they present it, even if you take this tenant to court and they they provide proof that they've paid this invoice or that there is an invoice. What can you do? But now worse, going back to Mr. Nelson's comment, he said that if they're not licensed, if they're not bonded, if they're not professional, that can make matters worse. I've seen it. I sold one rental property, Mr. Nelson, and I won't say where it was, but it was so bad because the owner was self-managing a property, didn't really have experience with managing, rental property. All they knew is that they were investor, they had money, they had good credit, and so they were, that they were just acquiring property and just self-managing it. I get it. That's their business. But they had not done a good job with the repairs that were completed. And so the tenant in one of the, this was an apartment building. And so in one of the apartments, the tenant had been getting someone. Obviously, they were not professional at all. Okay. That's the nicest way that I can put it. They were not professional and they did some really horrible work. They did some crappy work. And maybe they thought that they were doing a good job, but it made matters worse. And so when the owner finally was able to get in, they had to spend more money on something that could have cost them $200. It ended up costing them over $2,600. And so the cost can go up and it could definitely be worse. So thank you for that. So I just wanted to share the top 4 dangers. Now, also, let me do this because I don't want to hold you long. Hello, Miss Clemens. Here's your question. You said, how do you handle when a tenant feels they aren't responsible for repair or maintenance service? That's a great question. Thank you so much for that. I always commonly go back to what's in writing if it's in the lease. And then also keep it in mind that although sometimes it could be in the lease, tenants may still say, well, I don't feel like I'm responsible. I shouldn't have to do it. Like, I don't own the property. You're the owner. Help the tenant to understand. I do understand your concern. However, it is our in our lease agreement. When you sign the lease, you agree that you are responsible for the repairs. If you're not able to make the repairs, we will allow you to enter into a repayment agreement. We will give you, and just give them a time frame, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, just depending on the cost. And so if you have a tenant that's not trying to work with you, try to set a standard of going above and beyond to try to resolve the issue or to allow the issue to be resolved timely with payments being promptly made. And if the tenant is not in agreement with what they're supposed to do in writing, then in that situation, Ms. Clemens, by all means, you will have to take your tenant to court, which is one of the things that I strongly recommend doing. Treat your business like a business. It is a business. So whether you own one rental property, whether you own or manage over 200 rental properties, it is still a business. I have an owner. I'm not sure if they're watching right now. They have rental property that's been vacant. All right. Vacant property. I promise you, bricks and mortar don't pay rent. Vacant property will not pay. And if it's in a jurisdiction where the government is concerned about vacant property, they will assess extra charges. And so there's this one owner. I know that she's been following me. She reached out to me for some help because in that jurisdiction, she received documents saying that in that area, the government was assessing her with fines and fees because the property was vacant. And this is why I live, I teach, I share my philosophy. Please treat it like a business so that it can pay you each month like clockwork. Okay, so let me go to, and thank you for all your questions that have come in. Let me go to the final four again. I want to bring it up on the screen because I recognize that some of you are coming in late, but here are the four top dangers that landlords must be aware of. All right. When you don't make repairs, tenants can withhold their rent, tenants can repair and deduct, tenants can abruptly break the lease, and tenants can also sue their landlord. Please don't put yourself in that situation. I have some tips I do want to share for tenants today because I believe that this is going to be helpful. All right, so give me one moment as I share this information with tenants because I recognize that some of my viewers are landlords and then also some are tenants. If you are a tenant, please know and understand that if it is your responsibility to maintain the home in accordance with the lease that you signed by law, you are required to do that. Okay. It doesn't matter what the cost is. I promise you that over time, something will happen. A toilet may leak, a pipe will break. Doors, sometimes they do come off the hinges, but listen, I've been in the industry for so long in property management. I'm also a housing inspector. I've never seen a door fall off the hinge by itself. Right. And so, usually, if it's normal wear and tear, landlords, we cannot charge you for normal wear and tear. So, like normal things that typically happen. Okay. For instance, if you're living in a rental property and maybe you have carpet, you've lived in a rental property for, let's say, over 5, 10, 15 years. At some point, the carpet may buckle and things, it may look a little dingy or dirty. That's normal wear and tear. But now if it's abusive, if it's a high volume area, meaning that it's a high level of traffic, it's a lot of people going in and out, that may be considered tenant damage. So please be aware of that. Holes in the wall. Please understand, tenants, that landlords are not required to pay the cost for the holes that have been placed in the wall, whether you did it, your guests did it, your kids did it, whoever. Let's say a ghost did it, because sometimes I recognize that nobody knows how a big old gigantic hole ended up in the wall. Stuff just happens, right? Okay. Lies and fairy tales. Landlords are not required, nor are they responsible to take care of the bill for tenant damage and neglect. So please, if you have a landlord that's working with you, work with that landlord to either make the repairs, allow them to make the repairs, okay? Because I recognize that sometimes tenants will refuse to allow owners to come in to make repairs. I had a call just before I did this live today. I had a call that came in. I forgot to turn my phone off. I had a call that came in. It was a client of mine. She said, Carissa, my tenant will not let me in to repair the roof. So this owner has been trying to get the roof replaced, and the owner, for whatever reason, was not able to convince the tenant to allow the roofer to come into the property to make the repair. So in addition to getting up on the roof, they needed to make repairs inside because it had been leaking. Now, this particular tenant has consistently contacted the housing inspector office to complain that the leak had been going on for an extended period of time. So I just had to guide the owner on how to handle that. So if you are a tenant, please know that if you have a landlord who is knowledgeable, who is a professional, who is educated in property management, they can take you to court for failure to allow them to come in to make repairs, because by law, that's what they're required to do. So essentially, if you're not allowing your landlord to come in, you are in fact breaking the law. Okay. So just look over the lease. If you have questions, reach out to your landlord, your property manager, try to work with them. If you are a landlord watching, if you're watching the replay, let me just say thank you. But if you are a landlord and you know that you have not inspected the property, okay, please schedule an appointment, schedule some time to get by there, take a look at the property. You want to document it. You want to document it in writing. Make sure that you have pictures. Make sure that you have video footage of the condition of the rental property. That's going to be so important. And every time you complete that housing inspection, you want to document it. Okay, I went out on X date. I went out on March the 15th. I conducted a rental property inspection at ABC Main Street. The house was clean. It needed repairs to the kitchen floor. The refrigerator gasket was ripped or torn. There was a busted window in the back bedroom. You want to document it. You want to take pictures, but you also want to promptly follow up to let the tenant know when they can expect to have the repairs made. And then also follow up in writing to let them know if they have to pay any out of pocket costs so that they'll know how much they need to pay. And if it's too much for them to pay at once, I strongly recommend working with them, giving them time frame appropriate so that they can make the repayments. Okay. So those are the 4 things that I wanted to share today. I do thank you for your time. I thank you for tuning in. Listen, this is what I do each and every Monday. I share information to help landlords as well as tenants. I'm always available. If you have questions, let me put my email address up on the screen so that if you have questions, if I am not online, please feel free to email me. All right. Where's my email address? I'm pulling it up. Here's my email address. You can reach me at carissaspan@gmail.com. Every Monday, please find me right here, either on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Please make sure that you subscribe to that YouTube channel. I absolutely love what I do. I enjoy making a difference. I share information because, in addition to being a property manager and a housing inspector, I also teach property management for one of the local universities. So obviously, I am very passionate, but I'm very thorough with what I do. So again, if you have questions, this is what I'm here for. Find me right here, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a subject that you would like for me to cover, please either drop it in the comment section or email me, and I will definitely do that. Is that all right? So again, I thank you so much. My time is up. I thank you for yours, and I hope to see you all next week. All right, so I have another comment or question that came in. All right, Mr. Nelson, you said, thank you for this. I'm glad you're back and back to sharing. Absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. All right, slogan. Someone mentioned about writing a review. Where can that be done? Mr. Washington, can you put in the chat box? So Ms. Logan is asking about writing a review for tenants. So if you can just drop that in the comment section, I want to share that because sharing is caring. So what platform would you suggest that other owners write reviews? All right, so I'll wait a few minutes if you can share that for me. And see, that's what this is about, because this is a community, and it doesn't matter whether you're tuned in the DC metropolitan area, Charlotte, North Carolina. I promise that there are tenants everywhere. Somebody always need a place to live, and there are always going to be owners. So and it doesn't matter what jurisdiction you're tuned in from. Mr. Washington. Okay, so it's free, but what is the name of the platform that other owners can what is the name of the service provider? Because I don't use that, so I can't share details about that. So, Mr. Washington, do you know the name of the service provider or the platform that you heard of, or maybe you possibly used? Mr. Nelson, do you use this service? Is this information that you can share as well? All right. So I'll wait a few seconds to see if anybody has that information. If not, Ms. Logan, I'll look it up and I'll send you some information on it. I don't use that service. Um, there was a company that I was going to use years ago, but I never used them, but they were paid. And so I see that Mr. Washington said that the service is free. So I like free 99. Okay. All right. So, okay. So I see that YouTube is blocking the website. Um, all right. So Mr. Nelson, the he hasn't posted the name of it. So I will follow up. I will have that information and I'll share it next week when I do my live. All right. So I have some research to do because I want to make sure that I'm providing a free service because free 99 is always good, right? All right. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure that you join me each and every week right here 7:30 p.m. every Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, Mr. Washington, thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to say bye for now. I'll see you all next week.